I personally think that there's just too many huge movies coming out. And I think if you look at like July, even towards the end of May and August, it's like all these huge blockbusters all on around the same weekends. It's not going to give any opportunity for those films to retain the audience, because a lot of them are for very similar demographics. And I will say, I'm very torn on this one because I want it to be good so badly. But I keep seeing horrific CGI, and it has to do with Disney again, and it's The Little Mermaid. Sometimes the shots are incredible, and some of the underwater shots are so bad, and I'm just, it's that problem, and so the box office is gonna be very interesting this because there's so many things coming out. I'm gonna I want to do a double feature of Oppenheimer and Barbie because they're so polar opposites and just for fun, But
have they? I think they changed the release dates, but originally those were coming out the same day, and I think they moved. One of them moved. I can't remember.
Oh, they
who
did?
moved.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, I might be wrong.
I think they still are. I think they're both like, yeah. I think they didn't move them.
I mean, that's bold because you could say the audiences are different, but if I was putting my movie out, I'm not going up against Christopher Nolan for the sake of quality comparison. Forget box office. Just don't have me release my product the same day, even if it's a different genre. It's just like that gravitas of like, and I think Barbie could be really good and a surprise hit. But we got to go back to what you said, The Little Mermaid. This is becoming a catastrophe because it's not just the issue that everyone wants to talk about. It's what you just mentioned. If you look at the live action, it's like The Lion King. It's like a horror show. The other characters, all these other characters, Sebastian, all these characters, this is nightmare fuel. Just the look of them. And I'm sitting here like, did they not learn that this is not working the way, or was it because Lion King did really well based on just, it was the Lion King and like
the difference is Lion King had really well-known people in it. Like
it did
across the board.
Yes.
Whereas like
James Earl Jones's voice was back. Like
not to say Little Mermaid doesn't, but it doesn't. Like Melissa McCarthy really is probably going. I think she does pretty well as Ursula, but I don't think. Like you also got to remember Donald Glover, who was Simba, was at the height at that time. He was very big. Then you had all the songs, and you had like really top musicians joining. It was a bigger deal, right. I think.
And Lion King's the biggest. Like that was
Yeah, that's like top. That's like tier one. Not that Little Mermaid isn't, but I wouldn't put Little Mermaid as like tier one Disney. I put it at like tier two. I think it's like right there, but not that next level. I feel the same about like Aladdin, but I don't know. That CGI, my hope is that they don't make the film too dark in order to try and hide, because that can happen a lot, especially with underwater scenes.
Yeah.
That brings me to who's this for? Like, I honestly don't know who they're targeting.
Oh no, there's a target there. I think I will say that I think there is a target. I think it's mainly for Black and brown girls for the most part. For that feature. I think it's for Melissa McCarthy fans. I think it's for little girls in general. But to be fair, they did say that about The Lion King, and then a lot of people walked out of The Lion King like not happy. So that can. It's going to be a weird, contentious thing. I don't think that has the ability to make the money they would want from it. But I do think it. I do think they at least have the target for what they want to try and get out of it, which is good press. Yeah,
that was the first movie I saw in theaters, was the original Little Mermaid, and then with The Lion King, I agree with you. I don't like the way the like Flounder and the sub characters look, because I don't think it worked for The Lion King because they couldn't emote any expressions because they looked too realistic.
Yeah, that's fair.
So like I agree with you.
And we all know this. The box office is so rough right now. You need good word of mouth. So you need a good week one, but you need it to be supported by word of mouth getting week two going. I think if that movie's reviewed bad,
that's going to be bad for it.
It'll be tremendously, because it'll be pile on too. Because like people like me, I hate to say it, but if that movie is reviewed bad, I'm going to pile on it, because it's not the issue. It's just, you made a bad movie. You took something and you made another remake and you ruined another thing that should, I'm already against remakes pretty much right now anyway. So
I mean,
pile on.
people are tired of like a lot of the Disney, Marvel, Star Wars. You could even say the same of these. They feel very corporate almost in a way now, and like I think people are tired of corporate. I think that's why studios like A24 do so well. I think that's why action movies that are not attached to superheroes and horror movies that are not attached to like superheroes or anything like that. I think that's why those get so well. The Pope's Exorcist should have been a failure of a movie, and yet it did well. Right? Like John Wick did it only continues to do well with each successive movie. I think movies like Mission Impossible comes out this year. That might reach $1 billion if like it really gets going.
It could.
And then you even have like a smaller action movie, although not so small, but like The Equalizer of Denzel Washington. That's another movie where that might do
really well.
Yeah, that might do John Wick numbers, right? Like that might get to that 300-400 million. Just because one, it's Denzel Washington, and two, The Equalizer is just a fun movie, and Dakota Fanning's in it, and so it kind of has that man on fire thing from all those years ago.
Yeah,
I can see stuff like that. Horror movies, action movies, those are going to be. Insidious comes out this year, right? So like,
oh wow, yeah.
It's stuff like that. I don't see these bigger budget movies though. They'll make money for sure. The Flash will make money, Blue Beetle will make money, but like not the money they want to make.
Exactly. And that point goes right in line with what Nerdy Film Girl said earlier about how it's not about how like the ratio matters. If Lucasfilm spends 400 million-ish on Indiana Jones 5 and makes 80 million, that's not good because that doesn't sit well because you and me wouldn't risk that much money to make them. We wouldn't risk $400 to make
even.
$8.
just to break even, it still wouldn't be that good of a risk. Like,
right.
What do you get from that?
And so I think that part of me, if I wanted to take an optimistic approach, is I think that this year is setting up to not be a good year for big studios, and that could lead to some changes. And I think we saw that, and I was going to ask you guys what you thought about this comment, because I thought this was right on the nose. That he said what we all know is James Gunn was asked about Ezra Miller, and he said, we'll see how The Flash does. They're saying straight up, if fans think that this movie is good and they spend their money and the money talks, we will keep Ezra Miller. And we all know that. Like, that's not a surprise. It comes down to money. Like, can you get rid of a character? What does it cost you?
But is that correct? Because
it's not correct. But
even throwing the moral, ethical issues aside, is that even correct from the movie standpoint? You're marketing Michael Keaton as the main person. And that's what a lot of people are going to see it for, not necessarily Ezra.
Not Ezra Miller. So does that even line up with his plan? Like, because if you're going through that plan, why would you put Creature Commandos and the Authority and these things out? Why would you not just do Superman?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it's bizarre to me because, and again, Warner Brothers, same studio that spent an extra 150 million on Aquaman 2. Aquaman 2 is going to have a budget close to Indiana Jones 5. And that expectation's crazy because you got Amber Heard. I think that this year changes things. I don't know if it changes things necessarily for the better, but I think that, you know, if you look across the way and you see these small studios doing these projects, I mean, Paramount's not necessarily a small studio, but in comparison to the other ones, it is. Mission Impossible. If they manage to pull off Top Gun last year, and then they have Transformers and Mission Impossible do well this summer, which I think Transformers does well internationally. I don't even think it has to be a good film. I think that's just
it's getting bad reports of bad CGI.
Yeah, it is.
So like we'll see what happens there.
What did it say? An unwatchable mess is what one comment said. That's interesting. So yeah, I don't know. If I was going to ask you all, how about both of you give me, like, if things go really well, what does that look like? And what does it look like really the poor direction, the bad direction this year?
Like, if things go well, you would need you need 2, if not 3 more movies to reach the $1 billion mark for things to really go well, I think. But at the same time, if that happens, then it might be status quo. If things go poorly, which it seems like it's tracking a little bit more towards that, then Mario, maybe Mission Impossible is like the only movie to really make $1 billion this year. And then you have a situation where now you have to tackle what that means for future movies, for future projections, for the writer's strike, for things like that. But not only that, you'll also take a look at like what really got some good money. I think everything everywhere all at once kind of proved that last year, where it was just the whole like, wait a minute, where did this movie come from? Why is it so big? Why is it so popular? And no, it didn't make like $1 billion, but it had everybody talking. And that might end up being what it is. Like, can your movie get people talking rather than that's making the whole sales point? Like sometimes that word of mouth matters. Actually, all the time that word of mouth matters. So it's going to be interesting. I think it trends downward, and maybe we get some changes here and there, but it still might be status quo. You never know.
I agree with you, and I will say I think it's a different way to gauge films these days as well, with including rentals and films that do so much better not in the theater. I think Beau is Afraid is going to be one of those, because I think people are going to be like, what is this crazy movie? I'm not going to see it in theaters, but I'll like stream it at home because it's 3 hours. I think the 3-hour thing scares people off from going to the theater a lot.
Yeah.
I think that as far as The Flash goes, I think it was incredibly smart to show it at Cinecon, because a lot of the like really big film reviewing YouTubers that went, that I really respect their opinion, they're just raving about it. And like, that is what you guys were talking about earlier. It's that word of mouth type of thing. If people are saying you have to go see it, people are going to go see it. So I don't know, but
I think that's a good call, because, and I think they understood too, like, we have a good movie. People love Michael Keaton. He is Batman to people. And I think they knew a lot of people would say, my dislike for what this person's doing, is that outweigh my like for Michael Keaton and being Batman after 30 years. And he's just a likable kind of guy too. I think that y'all are right about, I think I would have cautionary optimism about the box office returns, because the inflation, the economy play a role. And then on top of everything, just, you have to be really careful with your marketing. You can't have a negative, like it's almost like, not only do you need to have positive marketing, you can't have a single negative in this environment, or it just sparks a fire. I think that that's a huge but
you know what though? You also have to include that whole thing of, again, like Nerdy Film Girl said, the streaming aspect.
Yes,
we're in a weird kind of like economy right now where a lot of people are starting to tighten their belts in terms of like, if you have a family, even if you don't have a family, if it's just yourself, or if you're just like a couple trying to make it, like, you're just trying to be in the best position that you can possibly be in. And sometimes that means you need to cancel some things that you're not using. And I think that's where Netflix still has the lead, because they're releasing things that people want to see, and they are continuing to just try and break the mold. For everything that everybody gave Netflix trash about last year, the stock went down and they were putting out bad stuff. They've kind of started to rebound little by little here and there. They've had some good series, though. Obviously, Wednesday was like huge, right? But then you think about the fact that like you had the Power Rangers movie came out, and that was like a little thing, but it was a big thing because it was talked about a lot. The Luther movie came out. Murder Mystery 2 came out. Extraction is coming out. The second one of that is coming out.
First one was watched by 90 million people.
Yeah.
Like,
so you have all these little but big things that are coming out where it just kind of keeps people engaged, and Netflix still remains the king of that. And so I think you'll have a situation where people will start getting rid of maybe their Disney Plus or their HBO Max, but keeping Netflix. And at the end of the day, for streaming, that's all that matters.
Netflix rules.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, I do think the one thing that HBO does really well is keeping that HBO Sunday night demographic, which, I mean, I'm nervous about.
So important.
Succession, I love that. That's ending. Barry's ending. It's going to be a while till there's another White Lotus. But to be honest, if there's a new show from HBO, I trust their judgment, because I think what they put out has very high standards to the quality. So,
And
but HBO's in a weird place, though. They're in a weird place because of what you just said. They have so many things ending, and then we have like a year, if not 2-year period between. Succession might pull it, because Succession it's still not as popular as some of their other series. So what might happen is they might pull in people because everybody's talking about how good the final season is. So you'll get people who come back, but that's still not going to get that live Sunday night audience like you were getting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there, because there's so many things that ended.
John, we've talked about this, and I think, first of all, they're crazy for dropping the HBO name. HBO is synonymous with quality. I can't believe they're dropping that name. But when I look at Warner Brothers and HBO Max and stuff, that is their strength, is they have these shows because you have Succession, The Last of Us, House of the Dragon. You've got more Game of Thrones series coming. You've got a Harry Potter TV series, which will be the show of all shows.
But they even their smaller things are pulling in people.
Velma,
we talked about Velma wasn't good, but it pulled in people. They have Max. This used to be a Max show, then it became HBO Max, and now I guess it's going back to Max. But they have Warrior coming out, which is was loved by fans so much that they were able to kind of get it going again. That's coming out in a little bit. So they'll have these little things. And again, that's another one where it's like, what 1 or 2 streaming services am I keeping?
I think that's so. If we look at it, we peel it back. Warner Brothers has some quality. They just have financial problems. Netflix has money, but also, there's the controversy over, you got Cleopatra, they have bad shows come out all the time, but they also make 300 original things a year. So it doesn't matter. Like, you can have a bad thing, but then, like you said, Extraction 2 comes out. Yeah. Nobody cares.
Yeah, Cleopatra is like its own thing. It's not really, it's a Netflix thing, but it's its own thing. It's a part of it, and everybody, you could say the same for Velma. You could say the same for every
no one
other.
Cancel over that.
Right. You're not going to cancel Netflix.
But you might cancel Disney because Mandalorian season 3 was it. If you're Star Wars, you could restart it when Ahsoka comes. Like, if you're a Star Wars fan, you got some time. There's no reason to keep it unless you want to watch Secret Invasion and you keep it for that reason. I think that streaming is changing things, and the financial health is going to change things because Netflix can endure because of the money. Disney's theme parks can endure even if the streaming goes to junk. There's too much money there. But I worry about the model at Warner Brothers with DC because the HBO shows work. Like, they're successful. People like them. Releasing a show at Sunday night at 8:00 is a genius idea because people watch it and talk about it
in unison.
Mandalorian season 3 comes out at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. My Disney, I don't understand.